William Wordsworth is the speaker and author of the poem. Wordsworth grew up in southern England and was highly influenced by the French Revolution and the plight of the common man. The poem is autobiographical, as Wordsworth describes his visit to the Wye River in 1798. It is a part of a collection of poems called Lyrical Ballads that Wordsworth co-authored with Samuel Taylor Coleridge. The poem takes place, as the title suggests, a few miles above Tintern Abbey, which is the ruins of a nunnery in southern England near the Wye River. The location of this spiritual place, built in the midst of nature, reflects the overall theme of this poem, which is the development of a spiritual sense with the passage of time. The speaker, Wordsworth, declares that as a boy, he bounded through nature like a roe, oblivious to the beauty surrounding him, and the God that he would later find through nature. This God, or spirit of nature that he later realizes as a man, reveals one of the greatest examples of romanticism evident within Tintern Abbey: pantheism. This is a philosophy that states God is present within nature and all things. That's not to say that there are many gods, such as a river god, tree god, and rock god, but that a single entity is present in all things.
The poem is divided into 5 distinct sections. In the first section of the poem, lines 1 through 22, Wordsworth is describing the beauty of the nature around him as he revisits the Wye River after 5 years of absence. He says that the 5 summers have felt like 5 long winters, suggesting that the time has gone by slowly for him, as he has missed the beauty he now experiences. He feels secluded and alone with nature and is at peace. In line 4, he personifies the Wye River with its soft murmur. He talks about the unripe fruits of nature during the season, which is of symbolic significance because a major theme of the poem is the speaker's maturation from a young boy overwhelmed by the beauty of nature to a mature man that understands the divine presence in nature.
As he moves into the second portion of the poem, lines 23 to 48, the speaker comments on how, while nature has remained relatively the same over time, he has changed greatly over the past 5 years, especially in a spiritual way, and begun to experience life at a deeper level. In line 23, Wordsworth says, "These beauteous forms through a long absence have not been to me as is a landscape to a blind man's eye." This shows that he has kept this scene of the Wye River and the Tintern Abbey in his mind when he faces the modern world and the lonely rooms amid the din of towns and cities. In hours of weariness, he has been able to reflect back on the nature and the scene he now sees before him to achieve tranquil restoration. He has learned to use nature as a tool to help him get through the monotonous dealings of daily life and achieve peace within himself. The way he has seen nature in his mind's eye during his absence was unlike a blind man's eye, suggesting that his memories were nearly as clear as actually laying eyes on the scene. Wordsworth describes the feelings of unremembered pleasure, which nature provides him. These feelings have no slight or trivial influence on the best portions of a good man's life, which suggests that nature has a major influence on who a person develops into. There is a single spirit which unites humans and nature together through a single spiritual entity. Wordsworth elaborates on the changes in his mindset over time during the third section of the poem. As in earlier parts of the poem, he continues to tell of the joyless daylight of cities and the fretful stir unprofitable, which suggests that the world outside of nature moves rapidly, and people do not take the time to enjoy the beauty of the world. He tells of the coarser pleasures of his boyish days and how he would bound like a roe wherever nature led. He describes his wild boyish behaviors as flying from something he dreads rather than seeking the thing he loves. He uses this line to convey that he only appreciated nature at a sensory level, rather than more deeply and spiritually as he now does. Lines 94 to 103 show how deeply he believes God is all around him and in nature. He sees a divine presence in all things that unifies nature and mankind together. Essentially, these lines embody the idea of pantheism and demonstrate Wordsworth's spiritual appreciation of nature. He references this belief earlier when he speaks of the Sylvan Wye. This description characterizes the river as a spiritual woodsy environment. The speaker refers to nature as having the power to chasten and subdue, which, with the passage of time, has occurred to him. He no longer looks at nature as in the hour of thoughtless youth, but hearing oftentimes the still, sad music of humanity. This demonstrates Wordsworth's views on the importance of nature and the emptiness in those who lack a true understanding of nature's beauty and divinity, and how it can help people to face the dreary intercourse of daily life. Wordsworth utilizes a number of metaphors in this section. He describes the spirit of nature as an anchor of his purest thoughts and the guardian of his heart. This shows his belief in nature's profound influence on all the best portions of a good man's life, and has allowed him to face the struggles of daily life.
In the poem's fourth section, Wordsworth uses a number of literary devices to demonstrate the feelings of his sister and his interactions with her. In lines 117 and 118, he uses the metaphor of reading to explain what he can sense of his sister's thoughts. Additionally, he uses synecdoche by using his sister's wild eyes to represent her as a whole. Line 118 also utilizes the metaphor of shooting lights to describe the emotion and joy that he could see in his sister. In this portion of the poem, Wordsworth specifically addresses his dearest friend, his sister. He's reflecting back on his life as he sees his sister and what he was. Through her voice, he hears the language of his former heart. He realizes that nature has always been good to him, that she never did betray the heart that loved her. Wordsworth then further personifies nature. He states that nature can inform that mind that is within us, and so feed it with lofty thoughts. Nature has tremendously impacted him, especially through his mind.
In the final lines of Tintern Abbey, lines 135 through 159, the speaker teaches his sister the lessons that he has learned and tells her of the reflections he has made. He tells her to never forget the love he had for nature. The speaker once again talks of the solace he finds in the beauty of nature and of how he has learned to appreciate nature as he has matured. He sees his sister as a reflection of his own thoughtless youth, but knows, like him, she will soon mature. Wordsworth's choice of words in this section of the poem goes toward the view of nature as a source of tranquility and unbridled joy, as he uses phrases such as solitary, free, wild ecstasies, and sober pleasure. The speaker also suggests in conversation with his sister that they may soon be separated, including his rhetorical question in line 145, when he asks his sister how she will remember him, and in line 147, where he asks what she will do if he should be where he no more can hear her voice. While mankind changes, nature goes on through its cycle independently. The speaker uses nature as a source of his appreciation of the world and growing maturity. The poem is in blank verse, unrhymed iambic pentameter. This is likely used to represent both the free spirit of nature as well as the defined logic of nature that comes from a divine presence that exists in all things. The poem embodies the characteristics of Romanticism, as it, at length, describes the beauty of nature. Wordsworth also includes a supernatural element through the spirit that unites all of nature together, the idea of pantheism. The speaker also makes mention of the humble life and the solitude he finds in nature connects to the independence and self-reliance that define the Romantic style. Tintern Abbey encompasses almost all elements of Romanticism and is one of the best examples of Romantic poetry that we have.